of the test, you will have an opportunity to demonstrate your ability to understand conversations and talks in English. There are 3 parts in this section with special directions for each part. Answer all the questions on the basis of what is stated or implied by the speakers in the recording. There will be time for you to read the instructions, and you will have a chance to check your work. The recording will be played once only. At the end of the test, you will be given 7 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet. Now, turn to Part 1. Part 1. Directions. In this part, you will hear 8 short announcements or instructions. There is 1 question for each announcement or instruction. For each question, choose the right answer, A, B, C, or D. Then on the answer sheet, find the number of the question and fill in the space that corresponds to the letter of the answer that you have chosen. We are ready to start. First, you have some time to look at questions 1 to 8. Now, listen carefully and answer questions 1 to 8. Question 1.
And now for tomorrow's weather. Partly cloudy in the morning for London and the southeast, but overcast by midday with rain in the afternoon. Temperatures will range from 11 to 19 degrees Celsius. There'll also be rain in the north, which will quickly spread to the rest of the country. Rain will be very heavy in some areas by late afternoon, especially in western and central England, and there will be strong winds over most of mainland Britain.
Question 2.
Hello, this is the Lost Property Office. There's no one here to take your call at present, but if you've lost something, please listen carefully to the following message. If you've lost valuables such as jewellery, cash or credit cards, you will need to contact your nearest police station as soon as possible to make a statement. In the case of a credit card, you should also contact your bank immediately. For any other items, please call in at our office between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m., Monday to Friday. Thank you.
Question 3.
Yeah, hello, yes, it's me. Look, I know I'm supposed to be in the meeting now, but something's come up. I feel dreadful about it, but oh, what a day this has been. First my train was delayed for half an hour, then... Anyway, I could still have got there, but would you believe it, my engine's packed in, and I'm stranded here next to the motorway until the breakdown service turns up. I'm so sorry.
Question 4.
Late last night, thieves broke into McCannon Hall, where a collection of the late Lady Betty Baldridge's paintings, statues and antiques are on display to the public. The thieves, who disabled a sophisticated electronic security system, ignored all the less valuable paintings and pieces on display, taking only The Lonely Wanderer by Carl von Terburg. The 1-metre-high bronze figure, which stands on a marble base, is regarded as the jewel of the Baldridge collection and is valued at over £5 million.
Question 5.
This isn't terribly difficult, but if you're one of those people who won't even change a light bulb, just call a breakdown service. Anyway, make sure you're safely off the road with your hazard triangle in place at least 20 metres behind you. Find the jack, spanner and spare, they should all be in the boot, and check the spare isn't flat too. Put the jack in place under your car, but before you begin to lift the side of the car, don't forget to loosen the nuts on the wheel. Then jack the car up, undo the nuts and take off the wheel.
Question 6.
Attention please. We would like to remind you that next Monday at 9 o'clock we will be having our yearly staff picnic. All staff and their families are invited to attend. Plenty of food and drink will be provided for everyone, and we will be having our famous barbecue. We will also have our annual fun and games. Prizes include a new DVD player and a holiday.
Question 7.
Due to problems with the lighting, the concert has to be postponed until Friday the 22nd. The concert will also be moved from Hall A to the larger Hall C. A bigger venue means a further 500 tickets will now be available, twice the original number. Because of the extra tickets will now be priced at the lower cost of $20.
Question 8.
In the event of a fire, please follow these directions. Stand up and walk towards the nearest exit. Do not run, and do not try to gather your things. When outside, wait for your teacher on the football field. Next week, we will have the first of our 2 annual fire drills. Thank you.
This is the end of part 1. Now turn to part 2.
Part 2. Directions. In this part, you will hear 3 conversations. The conversations will not be repeated. There are 4 questions for each conversation. For each question, choose the right answer, A, B, C, or D. Then on the answer sheet, find the number of the question and fill in the space that corresponds to the letter of the answer you have chosen. Questions 9 to 12.
Tanya, your first job was in children's television, wasn't it?
When I was asked to audition for a job presenting on children's television, I didn't want to do the job at all. I'd always wanted to be an actress and had done a lot of acting at college. In fact, it was the closest thing to acting that I could possibly have chosen, because it was presenting a live programme, so having been on stage in college, productions came in handy. In those days, we didn't have talkback. You know, that's where you have a little gadget stuck in your ear and you can hear the producer talking to you. So we had to rely on signals from the floor manager, which worked fine.
You had an extraordinary boss, didn't you?
Yes, Paul Broadley. He was a very well-respected programme editor. He taught me so much. He seemed quite old to me when I started. He was a grandfather. But he had this way of understanding what children could enjoy watching. He was absolutely determined to produce the best children's television, whether it was something about wildlife on safari or how to make a chocolate cake. He was devoted to the programme, completely single-minded about it, and expected us to feel exactly the same.
But you enjoyed it?
Oh, yes. And there was always something different. I even did parachuting for the programme. There I was, leaping out of this aeroplane with the cameras on me, trying to smile, although it was pretty scary. The stupid thing was that the jump went fine, but I fell over running back to the car carrying the parachute and broke my ankle. I thought my boss would be furious, but in fact he was okay about it. And I was amazed that lots of the children who watched the programme sent me cards. One even sent me a cake.
And your daughter is Maddie, the singer and model. Did she always want to be famous?
Well, we always had a lot of music in the house when she was young. I wouldn't say that I knew that she would do something special. I had to persuade her to learn an instrument. But I do remember one day she was supposed to be doing her homework, and my husband came down the road, and there was Maddie leaning out of the window playing her flute for all she was worth. It was a nice sunny day, and people were stopping and listening, and Maddie was bowing and really enjoying the attention.
And she still does.
Well, these days, years later, when I watch my daughter singing in front of a big crowd, there's always this curious thing. I suddenly realise that practically everyone is thinking that she's brilliant. It's not just me thinking that's my little girl. It's the whole room sharing the experience. It's not all roses, though. When Maddie had a bad patch with her singing career, she was taken on.
Questions 13 to 16.
I'm sure that's effective. So, we've just talked about learning English. Do you learn any other languages in the same way?
Actually, I thought about that question before, and I started studying Japanese a few years ago, but my Japanese learning is very different from my English learning.
How is it different?
Well, the little bit of Japanese that I've learned through listening mostly, and having to speak, or, helping myself in daily situations. I haven't been able to master enough kanji and Japanese symbols to be able to read it well, or to write it well at all. How about you?
I learned Spanish in a similar way to how I learned English. That is, I did study, but I didn't think of it as studying. It was fun for me, and then, once I reached a certain level, then I went to Spain to practice. But with Japanese, I haven't reached that level yet. Doesn't work anymore, so yeah, I've been trying to learn Japanese for a few years, but I think my brain has just become lazy.
It's interesting. Maybe our brains tackle every language in a different way. I don't know.
Maybe so.
Do you think age matters for language learning?
I would like to say no, but I think there are different factors. So surely, when you're young, you learn faster. And I think especially because there's nothing else that's occupying your mind. You're just studying. Maybe you go to high school or even university, so it's easy to take on another subject.
So age might have something to do with it? But I have this old friend who retired and then started studying French successfully. So I think it has a lot to do with your motivation, maybe. Your interests, maybe?
That's right. I was just going to say maybe more so than age.
Yeah, maybe when you're young you might be more eager to learn, but if you have the same kind of motivation when you're older, then why not?
Questions 17 to 20.
Felipe, you have been to the Galapagos Islands?
No.
But you lived in Ecuador, right?
Yes. Well, the problem is that travelling to the Galapagos is really expensive for us.
What do you mean for us? Is it expensive for Ecuadorians?
Yeah, for nationals. For people who live in Ecuador, it's quite expensive because, since the Galapagos attracts so many tourists every day, hotels and food and travel are so dear. So we cannot travel there because we can't afford it. But tourists, international tourists, can afford it to go.
That's weird. I had the idea that Galapagos is part of Ecuador, so I thought a lot of Ecuadorians would go there. So who goes to the Galapagos Islands?
Well, actually there's, 1 out of 10 Ecuadorians maybe might have travelled to the Galapagos.
But why do you think it's so expensive to travel there?
Well, because, as I've just mentioned, thousands of tourists go there, and the islands can't support so many tourists every day. Let's suppose that if prices were really low, then more and more people would go there, and there might be environmental problems or just pollution, and you know, those kinds of issues. So people in the Galapagos, their strategy has been to raise prices so that fewer visitors can go there and the environment isn't jeopardized.
That is true. I guess that makes sense, but being from Ecuador and not being able to see your own country, it doesn't make so much sense. I wonder how that can be solved.
Well, I don't really know, but maybe we have other options. We can travel to the Amazon region, which is maybe the same, as beautiful as the Galapagos, but you can travel to the highlands. Ecuador is a quite beautiful country. It's not only about the Galapagos, it's also about the different regions, the people, the food and the culture. Maybe the government should do something because people in Ecuador want to travel to the Galapagos, but it's really sad that we can't.
It is quite sad. Actually, I believe Ecuadorians should have more rights than the tourists to go to the Galapagos.
Yep, we should have more rights, but sadly we don't. So yeah, something should be done maybe.
Hopefully something will change.
Yeah, I hope so too.
That is the end of Part 2. Part 3. Directions. In this part, you will hear 3 talks or lectures. The talks or lectures will not be repeated. There are 5 questions for each talk or lecture. For each question, choose the right answer, A, B, C, or D. Then on the answer sheet, find the number of the question and fill in the space that corresponds to the letter of the answer you have chosen. Questions 21 to 25.
Hello. I'd like to start by saying that, like many city teenagers, I don't have much contact with the countryside. I live off a busy, polluted shopping street, full of people and cars in the middle of a crowded city, and I'd never given any thought to wildlife. Even though every house down my street has got a bit of a garden, and we have trees along the road and a piece of waste ground at one end, it seemed nothing out of the ordinary, and I took it all for granted. My attitude started to change when we had to do a survey of the wildlife in the city as part of a school project. We chose 10 families from the street and we asked them just to write down all the animals, birds, insects and so on that they could remember seeing in their garden or down the street during the last couple of years. All sorts of surprising things soon started coming out of that survey, like that we have 20 different sorts of butterfly, 50 different types of birds, and all sorts of animals, even some quite large ones like foxes and deer. At first we wondered what it meant, like, was it a world record or something? We'd no way of knowing. So what we did, we got in touch with a nature reserve out in the country and asked them what you could see there. And that's when we realised that we've as much, if not more, wildlife than they do. And that's what really got us interested in the idea of a nature reserve here. Because what worries us now is that we may be losing our local wildlife. One specially worrying thing has been all the cutting down of trees in the streets. We've got really big old trees here in this part of the city, and of course if one gets damaged in a storm or gets a disease, it has to be removed. But this year alone, over 100 of these trees have been chopped down. Now, the reason given for this is that the trees have really extensive root systems, which makes it difficult for people laying gas pipes, electricity cables and things. But we think these problems are not as serious as they are made out to be, and there's no need for all this destruction. What's more, although the local council has agreed to plant new trees in place of the old ones, what they're planting are these little ornamental trees that look nice, but the birds and animals just don't use them in the same way. And they're not even saving money because more suitable trees cost just the same.
Questions 26 to 30.
Hello students. I'm Mr. Taylor, and I'm one of the geography teachers on this course. This lesson, I'm going to tell you about the course. This year, you will study 4 modules. You will do 2 modules this term, 1 module next term and 1 in the final term. The topics of the modules this term are industry and rivers. I will teach the industry module, and Miss Holiday will teach the rivers module. Next term, Miss Holiday will teach the population module, and in the final term, I will teach you about climate. You will have 2 exams at the end of the year. The first will last 2 hours, and will have questions on all 4 topics: industry, population, rivers and climate. The other exam will last 1.5 hours. This one will test your geographical skills. During the course, you will have homework twice a week. Sometimes you will complete some exercises. You might prepare a presentation, do some reading and note-taking, or write an essay. You should spend about 30 minutes on your homework each time. Each term, you will also do a project. For these projects, you will have to do some research and write it up. The finished projects will be around 2,000 words long. These projects are important because your marks will go towards your final grade. Once a month, we will do some fieldwork. We might visit a local place of interest, or go into the countryside and do some experiments. The fieldwork is important because it teaches you important geography skills. Finally, let me tell you about books. We do not follow one course book. We want you to read widely. You should read some of the different textbooks in the library. Here is a list of useful books to read.
Questions 31 to 35.
Good morning everyone, my name is Brian Alden. Today we're going to talk about how to get a summer job if you're currently employed. The first thing you should do for your summer job search if you're currently employed is to decide what type of job you are going to get. Is it something where you are working at weekends or at nights? Are you going to look for just a part-time job or full-time? How many hours are you looking for? So you really have to assess whether to commit to a second job during the summer and then look at the different types of fields to work in. Is it something that you want that is totally different from your full-time job? Or is it something that's kind of associated with your full-time job? Or is it something where you take one of your hobbies and turn that into a part-time job? For example, let's say photography is your hobby. You might want to go try and get a job as a part-time photographer at a local newspaper perhaps. The best way to find a summer job while employed is to try and look in your area. Look at the different types of companies in your area and look online to find out who is hiring and who is not. Secondly, a rule of thumb is to make sure that you're not looking for your second job while you're at your first job. Employers typically don't like that if you're looking for a new job while you're on their time. So don't answer phone calls about a new job, don't send your resume on company email, don't schedule interviews on company time, and do all of this on your own time. A full-time job is the most important job for you. Don't jeopardize it by doing something stupid just to get a second part-time job. Now, let's look at the great ways to make yourself stand out to employers when you're going on your interviews. 1. Since you're already in the workforce, you can certainly highlight all of your experience and stress all the positives of your background. All the same rules apply about showing up, for the interview early and looking great. But here you have an advantage because you've been in the workforce, so that you can stress the fact that you're always on time, you have a proven track record of what you've done with your company and how hard a worker you are. The bottom line is to get your current company's references for your second position because they know you're looking for a second job. You can call your current company and talk to somebody about a reference for you and how you work. So you've got a great advantage if looking for a second job, while you already currently have a job in the marketplace. So we've just given you some great tips and tricks on finding a summer job. Good luck.
That is the end of Part 3. Now, you will have 7 minutes to transfer your answers to an answer sheet.